The Last Sunrise ending explained. Does Ry remember Julian? Hello everyone. Today we're going to explain the ending of The Last Sunrise and answer the biggest question from the final scene. Does Ry actually remember Julian? The movie builds toward a surprisingly emotional ending involving Ry's surgery, her memories, and the future of her relationship with Julian. Before we continue, here's your spoiler alert. We're going to discuss the ending, Ry's medical crisis, the surgery, Julian's decision, and exactly what that final beach scene could mean. So, let's start with what happens to Ry. Throughout the movie, Ry is dealing with a serious medical condition that has already changed the way she experiences life. Her medication helps control her condition, but she hates how it makes her feel. She feels disconnected and wants to experience life without constantly feeling limited by her illness. Then she meets Julian in Mallorca. Their relationship develops quickly, and Julian gives Ry something she has been missing for a long time. He makes her feel alive. But Ry is hiding the truth about her condition from him. Eventually, her health deteriorates badly. She suffers a serious medical episode and ends up in the hospital. This is where the biggest decision of the movie arrives. Ry needs surgery. The problem is that the surgery could save her life, but there is also a possibility that it could affect her memories. And for Ry, that possibility is terrifying. Her memories aren't just random moments from her past anymore. They include Julian. They include the summer they spent together. They include the places they visited, the conversations they had, and the feelings she developed for him. So the possibility of surviving while losing those memories becomes almost as frightening to her as the illness itself. But eventually, her condition becomes too serious to ignore. The decision is made to proceed with the surgery. And Julian plays an important role in this part of the story. He understands that Ry is afraid, but he also understands that she has a future worth protecting. He encourages the people around her to choose life, even if that means taking the risk Ry was desperately trying to avoid. The surgery is successful. Ry survives. But then the movie gives us the moment we've been waiting for. She wakes up. Julian is there. He looks at her, and he says her name. But Ry's reaction is difficult to read. She doesn't immediately give us the emotional reunion we might expect. Instead, the movie cuts away, and suddenly, we're left wondering, did Ry forget Julian? This is where The Last Sunrise deliberately refuses to give us a simple answer. Later, we see Ry at the beach. She is swimming, and the movie gives us a voiceover in which she talks about her memories returning to her one by one. That detail is extremely important. It suggests that the surgery did not simply erase everything permanently. Her memories may be returning gradually. She remembers pieces. She remembers feelings. She remembers someone she once knew. But the movie never explicitly confirms the exact moment when she fully remembers Julian. And then comes the final scene. Julian approaches Ry. He looks at her, and he introduces himself. Hola, I'm Julian. And that's where the movie ends. At first, it might seem like Julian is introducing himself because Ry genuinely doesn't remember him. But there is another possible interpretation. The scene mirrors the way their relationship began. Julian is essentially giving them another first meeting. And because the movie has already established that Ry's memories are coming back, this could be Julian's way of giving her the space to rediscover him. So, does Ry remember Julian? The movie intentionally leaves it ambiguous. Director Carlson Young has explained that viewers are supposed to debate whether Ry fully remembers him. Maya Rafiko also revealed that multiple versions of the ending were filmed, and she didn't even know exactly which version would be used until the editing process was complete. That tells us something important. The uncertainty isn't an accident. It's part of the ending. The movie wants us to wonder whether Ry's memories are completely gone, partially returning, or already coming back in ways she can't immediately explain. And there's a strong argument that she does remember Julian, or at least that she is beginning to. The biggest clue is the voiceover. Ry says that her memories are returning one by one. She thinks about someone she used to know. Then Julian appears. The timing is clearly intentional. The movie is connecting the returning memories with the person who changed her life during that summer. There's also a beautiful symbolic connection to the beginning of the movie. The final beach scene essentially recreates their first encounter. But this time, something has changed. Earlier, Ry and Julian met as strangers. Now, even if Ry doesn't consciously remember everything, they have already shared an entire relationship. So Julian introducing himself again isn't necessarily a sad reset. It could be the beginning of their story all over again. And that's what makes the ending surprisingly hopeful. Julian isn't walking away because Ry might not remember him. He's staying. He's willing to meet her again. He's willing to give her time. And that tells us how much their relationship has changed him. The movie is also careful not to give Ry a magical cure. Her medical condition hasn't simply disappeared because she survived the surgery. She still has to live with the reality of her health. What has changed is her attitude toward the future. Earlier, Ry behaves as though every beautiful moment could be her last. That's where the title, The Last Sunrise, becomes important. Ry initially sees the sunrise almost like a countdown. She doesn't know how much time she has. So she wants to experience everything immediately. She wants to feel everything. She wants to love without thinking about the consequences. But by the end, the sunrise has a completely different meaning. It isn't necessarily her last sunrise. It's another sunrise, another day, another opportunity, and possibly another beginning with Julian. That's why the final line and final image work so well together. The movie isn't saying that everything is suddenly perfect. It's saying that Ry has a future, and that future may include Julian. There's also an important difference between the movie and Anna Todd's original novel. In the book, the ending is much more explicit. Ry remembers Julian immediately after waking from surgery, and the story gives the couple a clearer happy ending. The book also includes a 1-year-later epilogue that confirms their relationship continues. The movie chooses something more ambiguous. Instead of directly telling us Ry remembers Julian, it makes us interpret the final scene ourselves. And honestly, that makes the ending more interesting. Because if Ry immediately remembered everything, there wouldn't be much mystery. Instead, the movie asks us to focus on something bigger than memory. It asks whether love can survive even when memory becomes uncertain. Julian's decision to introduce himself again suggests that he's prepared to start over if necessary. He doesn't demand that Ry remember him. He doesn't become angry. He simply gives her another chance to meet him. And that mirrors one of the biggest themes of the movie. Ry spent so much of her life worrying about what she might lose that she struggled to enjoy what she actually had. But her relationship with Julian teaches her that life isn't about guaranteeing that nothing will ever go wrong. It's about choosing to live despite the uncertainty. So, does Ry remember Julian at the end? The safest answer is the movie deliberately doesn't confirm it completely. Ry survives the surgery, her memories begin returning, and the final scene strongly suggests that Julian and Ry are going to find each other again, whether she remembers every detail immediately or not. The final introduction from Julian can be interpreted literally, as him meeting her again because she may have forgotten him. But it can also be interpreted as something much more romantic. He's recreating the beginning of their relationship. He's giving her another first meeting. And if her memories continue returning, she may eventually remember everything. That's why the ending doesn't really feel like a tragedy. It's a new beginning. Ry came to Mallorca believing that she might be living through her last summer. Instead, that summer becomes the beginning of a completely different life. She survives, she discovers love, she confronts her fears. And even though the future remains uncertain, she finally has one. The sunrise that once represented an ending now represents another chance. And Julian standing on that beach, introducing himself all over again, is essentially the movie telling us that their story isn't over. It may be starting again. And maybe that's the real point of The Last Sunrise. Sometimes you don't need to remember every moment to know that someone matters. Sometimes the heart can find its way back to the same person. And that's exactly what the final scene leaves us wondering.